I just want to share, I started contributing since my freshman year. Some Kubernetes Java client I was contributing to, but to the Kubernetes repository, non-code contributions were like my stepping stone. And Divya and Savitha, I reached out to them. They were really helpful. And similarly, now we are here on this live stream to help you all who are watching right now. So open source is for everyone. Every contribution counts. And we'll talk more about non-code contributions and how you can get involved in all these nice programs and, the Shadows program, for example. So yeah, really excited. And before we get started, I see close to 100 people are joining. So feel free to ask your questions in the chat, and I'll make sure I ask it to the panelists. And also we'll be doing a swag giveaway. So as a CNCF ambassador, I got some coupons for the CNCF store. So I'll be giving away a few of those, taking people from the chat who ask like good questions, basically. So yeah, let's get started. All yours. Can see the screen now. Yep, looks good.
All right, thank you. So I'm gonna get started here. Like we have discussed before, why contribute to open source. We talked a little bit about it, and I want to give more. What are the benefits? It first gives you an amazing opportunity to look into the real world software. It's like an awesome exposure where you can learn, collaborate with others all around the world. It's just not one place. So it's a great way to also learn other cultural aspects to programming and development, and you can work on improving your communication skills. And more than that, it's all about sharing knowledge, right? And one of the reasons why start with Kubernetes, like I mentioned before, I met the awesomest people. The community is so warm and helpful. When I made the first contribution, I didn't know how to operate with the Git. So I was committing to one of the Kubernetes website documentation, making a tiny little change, and I didn't know how to push the Git code because of some complications. And I reached out and I asked like who can help me, and that's how I met one of the prominent Kubernetes and other open source contributors, Dims. He goes by Dims. His name is Devanam Srinivas. I hope I pronounced it right. Sorry if I'm not. Sorry about that, Dims. So that's how I got started. So he walked me through step by step on solving the issue, and I was able to make the first contribution, and that motivated me a lot, seeing how people are helpful and they want to share the knowledge and they want to get you started. So it's one of the best place to actually start your open source contributions. Do you have anything to add, Divya?
I would like to add just a little fun fact here. So contributing to open source is obviously one way to get to know new people, get to learn new things and all of that. But over and above that, it honestly contributes a lot to the way you not learn really, but it exposes you to a lot more technologies, and you learn a lot more about the ecosystem than you would have had you been, just executing commands using that specific project. Now, for example, because I, started learning Kubernetes and started getting involved with Kubernetes, I also accidentally, and when I say accidentally, I really mean accidentally, stumbled upon another project within the Kubernetes community, which was Litmus Chaos. And that basically was a completely separate project for, chaos engineering on cloud native systems. I got to understand that discipline as well. And had I not actually started contributing to any open source project, I probably would have not really understood chaos engineering or reliability or observability in the proportions that I do understand them today. So it opens up a lot more vistas than you think it is opening up for you. You are learning the technology or the tool, but it opens up a broader avenue of things that you can explore. So that's one thing that has personally really been helpful for me in my journey, because I've gotten to learn a lot more than I would have had I just stuck to learning Kubernetes and executing commands and being the administrator that I was a year back. So yeah, over to you, Savita.
Oh, also, and I want to add one more thing, and this community and contributing to open source also has another benefit that for people who are nerd like me, an introvert, I made awesome friends over the last year. So that is like an added benefit. So and I really value some of the friendships. It's so wonderful. Moving on to the next slide. So apart from just writing code, there are so many ways that you can contribute. One of the most important thing that I would say is, like, if you get a chance to improve the test coverage or a little bit of a new test that improves the stability and reliability of the project, which is like the biggest contribution that you can do. It makes the project sustainable. And we just wanted to give a highlight of a little bit about the coding and the testing before we dive into the non-code contributions. Uh, Over to Divya.
Absolutely. So there are a lot of things that you could possibly do in terms of non-code contributions, and they're not just limited to documentation. Because when I say non-code contributions, or even something that deals with non-code contributions, the first thing that comes to anybody's mind, and it was the first thing that came to my mind when I joined as well, is how how can I make an effect of any proposition with just making a single amendment of code, or by writing tests for a project, or even by fixing bugs. Like, that's not important, right? The main thing is you're working on a technology, you're working on something that sort of runs on code. So shouldn't code be your main aim towards getting that valuable star contributor patch or whatever? But being part of this community and being part of the open source ecosystem in a larger sense has taught me otherwise. And it's just that you don't need to start off by writing code. Of course, if you know the tool and if you know the technology well, you should try out. But not every contribution journey has to start off by writing code. Of course, documentation is one aspect of it, and you can definitely choose to go down that route. But there are a lot of other avenues, like refactoring, writing tests for the project. You can also be a part of the community building aspect of the project. There are various avenues for you to contribute, because these areas, when you talk about in the technical sense, they are areas that don't see as many contributors as one would like, because all of these are equally important, right? If the community did not have people who went ahead and spoke about bettering contributor experience, if people did not have if the community did not have people who actually wrote tests, if people did not have if the contributor did contribute if there were no contributors actually writing any bug fixes, you possibly would not have Kubernetes to be as reliable a product as it is right now. So pick and choose where you want to just assume that writing code is the one stop short way to get into a Kubernetes ecosystem. There are various ways, and it it doesn't mean that if code contribution has worked for XYZ person, it should work for you, because there is not always going to be an opportunity to contribute to a good first issue from a code perspective. So branch out and look out for avenues where you can contribute in from where you are, and then learn more of the technology, rather than diving headfirst and not being able to swim or float in the ecosystem. You need to figure out your strengths and then dive deep. So do you have anything to add to this?
I'm good. So I am going to move on to the next slide. Like Divya mentioned, um, there are like more avenues, and you don't even have to come from a tech background. Like you can have any background, and you all of a sudden want to learn a little bit about tech, or like you want to branch out and you want to dip your toes into software. Like these are amazing ways to start out. Like so for example, if you're in marketing, right, and you want to add a feather to your cap, you want to see how you can do marketing in an open source program. You can always start there. We are in need of people who can help do all the non-code things to make the project sustainable. Like Divya mentioned, like we need more and more contributors who can write amazing documentation. One of my friends the other day, they said, I want to say it was Ray Lejano, is also one of the member of release team. He mentioned that a good documentation measures the success of the project. So there we go. Like if you want to start using the project, what would you do? You go and see the website and see like how you can do step-by-step things, like how can I install, how can I use, what are the users who are currently have adopted this, can I adopt this project, and blah blah blah, so many things. So you start from documentation. So contributing to documentation would directly contribute to the success of the project. It's not any less compared to code contributions. Even I actually love doing documentation work, and I'm learning. There are like so many mentors to you can just ask help and they'll help. It's not that I'm super awesome at writing. English is not even my first language, and I learn along the way. I make mistakes, but there are people who can the reviewers. So when you make a PR and submit, there are reviewers who would suggest, okay, can use this kind of language, use if you're like active voice, they might say like use passive voice, blah blah blah, vice versa. So that is one way. And another way is like if you love project management, there are like so much opportunities to do program and project management in Kubernetes ecosystem and also in other CNCF projects. And filing issues is one of the other thing. Like you are going through the documentation or you are using the project, right, and you think something is not super clear and you need clarification, or you think the steps or the concepts are outdated, you can always file an issue, and that counts as a contribution. Filing issues is a way of contribution, and it it keeps the project fresh and new, in my opinion, and that's really a great thing to do. Over to Divya.
Yeah, so I'm kind of agreeing with you on this. So I don't have anything else to add to your perspective, because I completely agree when you say that we require more folks who are interested in all aspects, it whether it be code, whether it be non-code, everyone's welcome. So a lot of questions when I speak about my involvement in the Kubernetes community, they tend to start with I know XYZ stuff, like maybe I know GitHub, I know Jenkins, I know XYZ languages. How do I get started? So maybe the language that you know doesn't really fit into the ecosystem of where we are at right now. But that doesn't need to deter you from contributing in the first place. So maybe you do have skills and you do have strengths that you have not explored yet. So documentation was something that I said that I got involved with as part of my very first contribution in the community. And um, I did not come from a coding background. I am not a computer science student. Um I am an electronics student who accidentally stumbled onto IT. So I basically know only HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and those are rusty at best as of now. Like, I can tell you that I can probably, again, there's no guarantee that I can actually create a website, but that's also like a far stretch right now. So I was I learned, and I actually made an effort to understand the technology and understand the documentation tool that was being used in Kubernetes at that time, and tried contributing to it. It was not easy for me, because like I said, my skills at coding were really rusty. I come from an infrastructure background, and I had my graduation in electronics. So it wasn't easy. And GitHub was not even part of my job till last year. So all of the GitHub commands and stuff that I have learned was basically thanks to Kubernetes. And I'm not even exaggerating the amount of help that it has done in my day job, because now I actually am one of the people in my team who knows Git really well. So I thank Kubernetes for that, really. So uh, it's not that you can't contribute if you don't know Go, or if you don't know HTML, or you don't know CSS, you don't know Java, you don't know GitHub. You don't need to know everything. You can start off where you are, and if you're good in something, you see that there is a need for it, just explore and figure out if you can contribute. Even one minute contribution makes a lot of difference in a community, because this is all self managed, right? So in a self managed environment, when you go ahead and say that I think that this might not work for a new contributor coming in, and I think it's very unclear, people get to see it from a pair of fresh eyes. And we are in requirement of multiple pairs of fresh eyes, without sounding too creepy, multiple pairs of fresh eyes for the project. So be that change that you really want to see, in the words of Mahatma Gandhi, but be that change that you really want to see in the project. So if you feel like there's something missing, come ahead and say it. You don't need to have a solution, because not everything has a solution at the very onset. Start figuring out if you could help somewhere. If you can't, see if there are issues that you can flag up, saying that this doesn't look like a good first issue to me. Are there is there something that can be modified, so that we can make it more new contributor friendly, stuff like that. It's feedback that matters to us. So yeah, it was more than a couple of words, but yeah, I agree with you on that. So next slide, I guess. So these are some of the non-code contributions that are currently ongoing. So Bug Scrub is something that's relatively new. It was started by Aditi, and I think the first iteration of this was on 24th June. That was 2 weeks back. And basically this was in one of the SIG SIG is a special interest group for those who aren't a part of the community. It's just like a focus group for a particular you know feature or a particular set of people working towards a particular end goal. So SIG node is one of the um, special interest groups that we have, and they have organized this bug scrub. I think it's on a weekly basis now, but I'm not really sure. Again, like Savita and I mentioned before, documentation is an extremely important part of the project, because what's the first thing that you see? Documentation. For every technology that you use, nothing would work if you just directly started executing commands left, right, and center. You need to look at the documentation, and documentation needs to be as concise, clear, and not contributor, user friendly as possible. So if there are any viewpoints that you have with regards to making documentation more friendlier, it's always welcome. And localization is another area which I think Savitha would be more comfortable talking upon, because she's also, it's not directly related to localization, but she's also the tech lead for SIG security dogs. So maybe I'll leave that bit to her. But localization, even if you don't look at the security documentation part of it, we have contributors from across the world. So English might not be the primary language for every one of them. It's not ours. Like, English is not my primary language. It's not my mother tongue. But for such contributors, we need to make our documentation more accessible, because language should not be the barrier that prevents someone from contributing or understanding the project and the tool. So localization is an extremely important part of the open source ecosystem and in general, because it's very much in line with the diversity and inclusion that we so talk and hear about these days, right? We want to be as diverse and inclusive as possible. This is one way. Make room for more non-English speaking contributors, and localization is one way that helps with that. So if you feel like you'd have a good grasp of how to translate the documentation into a particular language, feel free to go ahead and see if there is an existing initiative and contribute to that. I'm aware that there are multiple languages. Not sure if Hindi is there, but I guess that's one thing that we should actively, as a community, target, because language should not be a barrier at this point in time, where people have access to an internet at the click of a mobile phone. So that should not be a barrier. But that being said, I would also like Savita to talk about her experience with SIG security docs and how she started with it. That's because that's a very interesting story, in my opinion.
So thank you, Divya. I am going to add a couple more things to the localization before I move on to the sub-project. There are currently over 13 or 14, around 14 languages that's supported. Ranges from Korean, Spanish, and I think there is already Hindi localization efforts going on. And there was once at the point, someone started Tamil localization and didn't have enough sponsors or like people who are willing to work. So in order to get a localization started, you need at least like a couple of folks who are super interested in putting the efforts into translating the documents. And you need to find a couple more who can review and approve your changes. There are like so many. So almost all of us, we speak more than one language, right? We would have a different mother tongue, and we talk English through school and colleges and at workplace. And some of us have moved to a different part of the world, and then we pick up new languages there. So it's not like you have to be super fluent in a language to start or contribute to localization. You can just be, like, oh, I'm learning things, and I think I can understand this, and there is a way that this could be improved. So you can just leave a comment there. It's not like you have to create a PR and go from like scratch to getting it done. You can always, even reviewing is a kind of contribution. You can see whatever is already existent, whatever pull requests have been created, and you can just go there and like, oh, this word can be improved, or this doesn't make sense to me. How about this kind of suggestion? So those counts towards contribution still, and that improves the accessibility, and anyone from the world can uh, start working on the project, use the project, and ultimately lead to the success of the project. And they can also um, grow in terms of their knowledge base. It's like an additional skill that you can add to your resume later, which is really important. Any kind of contribution or anything that you do has to have some kind of effect, right? It should help you some kind of career wise, or it should help you in terms of personal growth. So all these would definitely help. For me, at times, all the contributions that I do makes me happy and motivated, and that is important for my personal growth. As a person, I grow and I learn to be more empathetic, and seeing others, I learn how to be more kind. Those are actually helping me. Those are my personal goals and growth areas. And in addition to it, definitely helps me career wise too. I'm not telling it's not helping me there. It definitely does. Like Divya mentioned, she is a go-to person for Git right now, and something similar is me on my team. I used to be the go-to person for Git because I started learning from the Kubernetes community by contributing to it, and then I became the go-to person. And now there are multiple people on my team who can do Git really well. And moving on to the sub project about security documentation, I have very little experience. I once got to lead documentation sub team for one of the releases 1.19, and I know a little bit of the project organization and stuff like that, and I am super passionate about security. My graduate major was in security, and I couldn't find a job because of so many other reasons in security related area, but I always had the passion. And SIG security was one of the newest SIG that they formed. And I showed up to one of the meetings and they were talking about stuff like, oh, we are interested in improving the documentation. We want to improve the tooling. We want to do like audits and stuff like that. So those became a little tiny area on their own. And then I just showed up and I said like, I want to do it. I want to lead the project, and I need help. I need guidance, but I am super willing and interested. So it was basically like show up, take responsibility, iterate, and grow from there. Learn from others. There is no ego in sharing your knowledge and learning. There is no harm. You can always say like. Hey, I don't know how to do this. Can you actually help me? And people are more than willing to walk you through it. For example, I didn't know how to do some Google Sheets programming, and it was related to release. And the previous release lead for 1.20 Nabrun, he set up a call and then he walked me through it for 1.5 hours. And it was late in the night for him. It didn't matter. He was like, oh, I'm helping a friend and I'm going to help, and I will pass on whatever knowledge that I have, right? So that helped. Small things go a long way. Like small helps like this go a long way. So that was a fun story for me, like how I got it started with security documentation, and I'm constantly on the lookout for improving the security and the Kubernetes documentation. Moving on to the next one. So this is a tiny little bit about the bug scrub that Divya mentioned, it basically the group went through all the open issues and then they figured if they can be closed or if they can like whatever solutions. They went through the issues, they added what can be done, and there were people who actually volunteered that I'll pick up this solution, pick up this issue, and I will work on it and stuff like that. I think they closed around like 100-ish issues in like couple days. Am I right? I think so. I'm not super sure, but they did really awesome job in like couple of 2 days. The program ran for 24/7 for 2 days. Like people rotated between the time zones. They had shifts, and one of the contributors from India got ran it. I think her name's Aditi, if I'm not wrong. Am I right, Divya?
Yep, Aditi ran this from the Indian side, APAC side of things. And yeah, I mean, it was like I don't remember the exact stats either, but it did cross 100 issues if I'm not mistaken too. Yep.
So these are the opportunities that you can get started with. Just be on the lookout, like subscribe to Kubernetes developer kdev at googlegroups.com. We will add the details at the end. I think it's the Kubernetes discussion forum where all the information gets posted. Just subscribe to it and keep an eye out. All the opportunities get posted there.
Also, there's the in-dev channel where all the
Yep.
nice issues are shared on Slack. You can join that. You can also join the students channel on Slack and the yeah.
Like Kunal mentioned, there are like a lot of resources. We have a slide at the end mentioning about some of the resources. We would keep adding, and if you have any questions, ask in the YouTube chat. I know Kunal is watching, and we will definitely have time at the end to go over one by one. I did mention a little bit about marketing and program management in the beginning. And another thing is mentoring. I got started by going to a KubeCon, and they had speed mentoring sessions, and that's how I got started. I just went. I had the motivation. I wanted to give back to the community. I wanted to learn. I just went to the session, and they said like, "Oh, you are interested? You can get started here. Go to SIG release," and that's where you get the bird eyes view of the entire project, right? I took it to heart. I came back. I did my due diligence for 6 months, but I started my contributions with docs. I applied to be a release team shadow a couple of times. I didn't get through. I moved on away from it. I worked on documentation for a while. I reapplied and I got into one of the release team. I think it was 1.18, and this is my 5th cycle. So I've been in the team for like 5 cycles, over a year now. So that's how it started. So mentoring is very close to my heart. I got started by someone helping me, someone mentoring me. Like there are so many people. One of even now I get mentored. Like I ask for help. I have reached out to the co-chairs of SIG security at times, Abby and Ian, are asking like, I don't know how to do this. Can you help me? Or like, I have never recorded a video. Do you want to sit in the other side of the Zoom and help me? Even that is kind of helping and mentoring. So whenever I get a chance, I make sure that I give back. As much as I know, and if I don't know, I make sure that I redirect the folks to the right person who can help them, and even that matters a lot to me. Another we have a section on release team shadow, which we're gonna get in a bit. And one other thing is the kept reading club, which is relatively new. It's also another way to get to know about the project. So basically, folks get together, they pick a KEP, KEP is nothing but a Kubernetes enhancements proposal. This is one of the ways that a new feature gets added to Kubernetes. Like you write a proposal and then it gets vetted by the stakeholders in the community. They ask questions and they get the answers, and they turn a very raw idea into a real good feature, and then it gets implemented. So that's how it gets started and it gets going. And we have like so many KEPs right now. Probably the repository might have over in like 400 500 of it. I'm not sure about the numbers, but it's in hundreds. They pick one of the KEP and then they go through the structure, they read about it and they talk about it, which means you get a background idea of one portion of the project from that meeting. And then if it's interesting, you can go back and do your due diligence work and learn more about it, ask questions in the Slack channels, and you can go from there. It's one of the really interesting new things that's happening. And over to Divya about the rest of the contributions.
And sorry. So there are other ways to get involved, like Savitha actually mentioned program management earlier on, right? So that's a very I know that's a very high level way of getting involved, because you will probably require more than a couple of contributions to sort of get involved in the project and be recognized as a contributor, after which you probably can get involved with program management. But it's a very good way if you are into you know decision making and coordinating and leading, and more into leadership kind of roles. So this is a perfect opportunity, because I believe we have something of a mentoring program in this regard, if I'm not wrong, Savitha. Not sure about it, but program management is a good way to start, one of the good ways to get started. Over and above that, I think Kunal will be a very good candidate for the marketing, marketing explanation, because he has been a part of the upstream marketing team and has sort of, I think, regularly attended the meetings as well. So I think, Kunal, you can chime in with your experience here.
Yeah, sure. So I've been a part of SIG marketing for like the upstream marketing team for a while now. I just started with attending the meetings and not doing anything. So I just used to sit like this and see what everyone was working on, and just taking in all the information. And the way I started, see, there's no definitive roadmap. So one day I was just sitting and just seeing what everyone was working on. And then like, we need to work on some tweet scheduling thing. Kaslin was saying that, and then she was like, who would like to help out? And I was like, yeah, I can help out, but I don't know anything about it. And the thing that impressed me the most about the community was, after the meeting, Kathleen and I just like got on a one-on-one, and she explained to me everything, like the process and everything. So like the community was really welcoming and friendly. So even though I did not know anything, she just was like, hey, we can have a one-on-one. So we had a one-on-one. She explained to me everything, and that's how I got started. Then I started with like writing blogs, and then KubeCon came. So we did like the a lot of students attended KubeCon, so we did sessions for that. Currently also, we have there's the Cloud Native TV. So there's a show coming.edu for students. So make sure you check that out. And yeah, I mean, there was a session on path to non-code contributions by the marketing team at KubeCon as well. So recordings are available on YouTube. I'd recommend you to check that out. But in order to get started in marketing, like currently, I'm also a part of the same people that I used to attend meetings with, like Rajula and everyone. So now I'm working with them on the comms team for SIG for the 1.22 release. So I believe that was also related to me being active in the upstream marketing channel. So yeah, we're like working on writing blogs and getting new features, like documented and everything. And the only way to get started is, I would recommend just attend the meetings, and there's like a project board in which you can just put your ideas and work with those ideas. So getting started is the most important part. attend the meetings, even if you feel like you won't be able to provide much input. Just attend, and I'm sure something would come up for you to take part in. So yeah, the meetings are actually, if you join the Google groups, you will get the invite in your calendar. But just in case, it's every Friday, 8:30 p.m. IST.
And to add to what Kunal said, thank you, Kunal. To add to what Kunal said, I was a lurker too. I attended SIG release meetings 6 months without opening my mouth even once. Like I was taking all of it in, and I didn't know where to jump and contribute, and I was also shy. So unless and until someone called on or said like, oh, we keep seeing some new members on the call, why don't you go and introduce yourselves? So it's okay if you are like, if you feel you're not ready, if you feel you're overwhelmed. Everyone at some point in their time in their life, when they are contributing to such a big project, would have felt overwhelmed, and that's totally okay. I felt it. I just had in the meetings for like 6 months, didn't do anything at all. I learned about it, but I didn't have an opportunity to contribute anywhere. And then I moved my focus to some other project. It's all about perseverance, and it's all about like just showing up. You can just show up and say like, yes, I can do it. Take responsibility, and there will be like so many people who would guide you. All they are looking for is like someone who wants to take up the work, show up and say like, yes, I will do it, and don't worry about things like you don't know anything. There are like, you can ask, and then someone will definitely walk you through it, and then you can pass it on later to another person, right? Like life's about learning and sharing. That's how I see it. Thank you, Kunal, for mentioning about the meetings. I remember for really long while I was just sitting at the meetings, but that helped me, right? I got familiarized with the folks in the community, so that is not totally in vain. Just show up. And another point that I want to add is that all the meetings are, some of the SIGs are very responsive to the time difference these days. So they have asynchronous meetings, right? So if it's in the midnight for you and you cannot show up, there is always a document that's going around, and you can go and learn the what is happening there, and you can add your updates there. So we are pushing towards asynchronous meetings, and we are also pushing towards having time zone friendly meetings. Like for example, SIG release meetings, the release team meetings that we have, one of them focuses on APAC, which Divya runs most of the times, and thank you, Divya, for that. I don't thank you enough. So it's a big help for me as a lead, and and we also want to have presence in all around the world. This is a way for APAC and EU folks, Europe folks, to join in and share their updates and stuff like that. That's all I got add here.
Yeah, I believe this SIG contribex and docs are great for beginners. You can get started even without any prerequisites. Just have the will to learn and ask a lot of questions. But I believe for beginners, it's a great place to start. You can check out docs and contribex. Even the marketing meetings you can join. So we are like doing, like, we have so many things like in progress, like the SIG blogs, for example, we are writing showcases. So you can take part in that. So basically you have to reach out to various SIG members, write a blog on what everyone is doing in various SIGs. There's so many places you can, help out.
Just to add on here, in SIG Contribex, we have this alternating between Slack threads and in-person meetings. So like Savitha mentioned, we have an APAC friendly one, but it's not always right that people can get together on a Zoom call. People have lives outside the community, and they probably do want to spend it with their families and their friends or whatever, even in the pandemic. So our community sort of is not perfect at it, but we are moving towards having lesser decisions being taken in in-person Zoom meetings, because we realize that not everybody can attend given the time zones, given that life is happening all around us. So a lot of our discussion takes place on Slack threads, and in SIG Contribex, an entire meeting is on a Slack thread every fortnight, which means that your entire agenda is up on a SIG Contribex meetings channel, and you need to sort of comment on it. And this is a very good way. And now it's not possible that people can complain that oh, I don't have time, because you do have all these avenues, and we are trying our best towards moving to an async model, towards moving to a more APAC and EU friendly model, so that more and more contributors from the other side of the globe, rather than not other side, actually from our side of the globe, because in Indians, Chinese, all of us are at the receiving end of sitting up at late nights and trying to get through the work, right? So this meeting transition is slowly going to happen for almost everyone across the community. So yeah, so don't be hindered by the fact that I can't attend meetings because it's 9:30 in the night for me, and maybe I can't, maybe I won't make sense, and maybe I knowledge and time is not going to be a barrier. But and we're trying to slowly transition towards becoming a little more async and time zone friendly for everyone.
A few people are also asking for some hands-on demo or stuff. So we can share some links like at the end after the presentation, and also answer any of the questions you may have.
Yeah.
Moving on, so this is like the just about the kept reading club that we mentioned before, and we do have a little bit of best practices. So one of the so if you want to contribute, and you've decided that you want to start somewhere, there is a website which has all the resources on the earth that you would want to get started on Kubernetes, and we have a link there. You can go there. It even has a page on non-code contributions, and it explains what is a contributor license agreement. It has steps on, so if you're interested in building Kubernetes on your local environment, it has steps for that. And then if you're interested in doing documentation work, I bet it definitely has links. If not, this is your chance. You can always create an issue telling that, hey, I want to add a link to this documentation, Kubernetes documentation site, and on how to get started. Can I add it here? So that is your opportunity to create an issue and keep this contributor website fresh and new. And on to Divya for finding good first issues. I think you're muted.
The cats took
I'm
over.
sorry. Yes, yeah, my cats took over. They had some valuable insight on contributing to Kubernetes. So yeah, so regarding good first issues, right? All of us need that one issue to start contributing, and all of us are on the lookout for that. So this link on the slide will give you a link of all good first issues across the Kubernetes organization. And it's what will, this link is what will help you gather information as to what you could possibly contribute to. So if you can see here, I'm not sure if everyone can see it as clearly as us, but there's a label in gray. So there's a good first issue label, there's a help wanted label, and there's a kind cleanup label, right? So these labels are what help in identifying what a particular issue is all about. So good first issue obviously is one part, but if you are sort of contributing to a documentation issue. You're not exactly right. You're not writing a test fix, or you're not writing a code. You will have what is labeled as kind documentation against your good first issue. So this will help you understand where you could contribute, and it is very easy. You just need to go to this link, and this is one thing I would highly recommend every person who wants to get started with to check out, because it's very beginner friendly. Trust me when I say that, because I know zero. I mean, I shouldn't say this out really loud, but I don't know a lot of coding. So yeah, so just go ahead and check this out, because this will help you get started. Go is a requisite if you're trying to contribute to the code base, but it's not necessary, like we said before, that you have to contribute to the code base, right? You could do a lot of other things as well, and all of those issues are also listed in this particular good first issues. So go ahead and check that out, and see in the very first place if it's not being worked on by everyone, someone else, because that's a major thing that happens in Kubernetes, is that a person is already working on an issue, and somebody goes ahead and tries to fix it. And that's one of the feedback that we received when we conducted a workshop back in January, that I was already working on an issue, but somebody went ahead, jumped the gun, contributed, closed the issue with a PR submitted, although it was assigned to me. So please don't make that mistake, because that sort of deters other contributors from chiming in. So please go ahead and first check whether somebody else is already working on the issue. If nobody else is, consider speaking on the consider commenting on the issue and asking the reporter of the issue to assign it to you, because as a non-member contributor you will not have the rights to assign it to yourself. So ask the issue reporter to assign it to you, so that you can be the only person who's working on it, and the person who has raised the issue can correspond with you on that particular issue. Also, like I think Savita and Kunal mentioned before, make sure you join the Slack channels, because that's where you can get in touch with the person, because he, she, they will be a part of the Slack channel, and you can have like an in-person chat with them, rather than just going back and forth over the PR, and waiting for ages for that one comment to come in. Don't make that mistake. Get involved in Slack as well, and that would help you. So anything else to add, Savita, from your experience?
No, you covered pretty much everything, and I just want to call out what you said. Just be considerate to your fellow contributors. If you see someone else is working on, and if you don't see a progress for, say, a month or two, you can tag the issue creator or the reporter, and also the person who was previously working on the issue, and ask, hey, are you continuing or are you actively working on it? Can I join you? Like, first ask before you act. And there is nothing wrong with that. One other thing, the good first issue that I just remembered is, it's a good first issue for a reason, because it has all the steps that needs to be done. Like, it will be so thorough and detailed. It will say like where you have to go, what you have to do, and how can you get it done. And the person who created or who marked it a good first issue would always be there to help you out. That's all I have on the topic. So I am going to move on to the next one. Like Divya mentioned, there is another, the next logical flow after a good first issue would be help wanted. It's a little bit more than good first issue. Once you have gotten an idea of what that project or what you're working on, you can move on to little bigger chunks, little advanced PRs and issues, and that is what is help wanted. It will have all the information, or like at least it will have some person who's reporting, and you can go back and forth and collaborate on Slack, like Divya and Kunal mentioned before. And also, don't always take all the good first issues. If you have done it once, move on to the next one and leave all other good first issue for the new contributors who want to get started. So that is my humble request on the topic. Do you have anything to add, Divya?
No, +1 to all of what you've just said, really. And I think we can move on to the next slide, which is just an amalgamation of what we've just spoken about. This is, the non-code contribution documentation guide, and you sort of can go through that and get more insight, because it's not possible to cover all of it in one session, right? So take a deep dive, take some time out, look at the ways you can contribute. Firstly, assess your skills, because that's a very, very, very first important step that you need to take. Assess your own skills, assess your strengths, assess where you would like to contribute, and then go ahead and see if non-code contributions fit into your bucket, because that's the most important thing. And we don't want to push people into non-code contributions. That's not the idea of this session. This is just another way to get started, and we have a guide for this. So this is one of the ways you all can get started. And read the guide for further details and how-tos regarding non-code contribution. With that being said, I think we should move on to our most interesting part, which is the release shadow program. Savitha, you are the best person to start this off, given you are the release team lead for this cycle. So how about you go first?
I will, but I want to do a time check. We are at time. I hope it's okay to go on. Kunal, is it okay?
Yeah, we can go on a little bit more. That's fine.
All right. So we're gonna power through this, but I'll try not to talk too fast. What is a release team, right? Kubernetes releases quarterly, which was recently moved to 3 releases per year, starting with 1.21 unofficially and officially with 1.22. The current cycle is the version 1.22, which we are actually actively working on. And the target release date is August 4th, tentatively. We are hoping that we will hit the target on time. And I have the humblest opportunity to lead the Kubernetes release team for this cycle. What actually happens there, right? We are not doing any code contributions. We are actually wrangling all the features that wants to get into the particular release. We reach out to the folks who are responsible for developing the code, and we are like, hey, do you want to be on the release? Yes. Once they say yes, and we help them track the feature, get the feature in, and help them track the documentation related to it. Like, by this time, you should all know we are so big on documentation. So any feature that goes in has to have, or like mostly it will have a documentation piece attached to it. So we will track them. And then some of the features would be new and big, and some of them would be like deprecations. So we want a blog post on it so that people can take a look at it and understand a little bit more in detail, which is which is a portion of the task handled by the release comms team. Kunal is a part of it. Rajula is a part of it. So many other good folks are a part of that team, and they make sure that all the blog posts get in order, and they also make sure the release blog post gets on time on the day of the release. And they also are responsible for communications between CNCF and Kubernetes team, and they make sure they schedule the webinars for the release lead and the enhancement shadows and enhancements lead and so on. And another important team is bug triage, which is responsible for going through all the critical and important bugs and then following up with the owners and making sure that it's not blocking the release. They actually help in a way that they keep the release on track. They reach out to folks who own the issues or PRs, which are marked release blocking or priority important or whatever, that it needs to happen right now. So they reach out to them and they keep the ball rolling. And another one is CI signal, that is important too. It's all about the stability of the release. They monitor all the tests if the PR is, if the tests are passing or not. They have conformance reports, they have performance reports, they constantly make sure the release is stable throughout the cycle, and when you ship it, you are confident enough that the release is like reliable, and all the new features that got added in doesn't affect the old ones, compatible. So they help with all these things. So there are like multiple sub teams, and I think I touched every one of them, and they have an important role to play in the release, and they all help the release lead shadows and release lead and shadows to make decision and to get the to make basically, they help us to make the decisions. And there is also another category called emeritus advisor, who would have been a release lead in the past cycle, and they can share their expertise on, like, when we hit a stop and when we want some kind of advice, or like the shadows are kind of lost and they need some kind of advice. You can always, like, they can always reach out to the emeritus advisor, and they are there to just help and provide mentorship basically. And this process is one of the best mentorship process, streamlined mentorship process available in the Kubernetes ecosystem. It provides you an opportunity to start as a shadow, move on up the ladder, become a sub team role lead, and then gives you an opportunity to shadow the lead. And then you can eventually lead the Kubernetes cycle. So I started as a shadow. I was a documentation shadow for 1.18, and then for 1.19 I became the lead for documentation sub team. And then I shadowed the release team lead for 2 cycles because I wasn't ready. I wanted to learn more. And then eventually in 1.22, for 1.22, I am leading the cycle. So that's how my journey started. And this is where I am at right now. Along the way, I have learned so many things. I've learned more about the Kubernetes project. I have learned about leadership. I initially thought I'm not a good leader. I still keep thinking at times that I am not a good leader at all, because that is not the quality that I have. That is a quality that I am working on, that I want to be mindful of my team's workload and their timings and their well-being. That's what majorly I focus on. And I also, at the same time, I don't want to keep losing the track. Like, I want the release also to go well. I want the product that we are going to deliver also has all the new things and the old things deprecated and whatnot. So I want a good product out. At the same time, I want to focus on the well-being of the team. So I struggle a lot, and I'm improving. So there is a lot of room to learn, and it's like a feedback loop. You go through something, you get some kind of feedback, and then you put the feedback through the loop, and then you go through something. So it's like continuous learning, and you keep doing it forever and forever, as long as you want. So these are some of the things that I mentioned. And Divya, do you have anything to add to it before I move on to the next one?
Yeah, just one little thing. It's a mentorship program in its truest sense, because you basically get to tag along the role lead and help deliver a Kubernetes version to the final product that gets delivered at the end of the cycle. So you are part of the process. You're not writing any code. Again, that's the primary thing that I would want to highlight here. You're not writing a single piece of code. You are sort of like the product management team, if I could like draw an analogy. So you're like the product management team that ensures that whatever enhancements, features, bug fixes, whatever stuff that is being worked on by every other part of the project is coordinated well and pushed out of the door on the specific date that it's supposed to get out on. And that is in itself a huge responsibility, because it teaches you a lot about not just the specifics of the project, like the technology or the testing or whatever else, but it also teaches you how to work with one another without actually you know uh, being an in-person environment, because this is all globally distributed. It's not like I and Savita sit next to each other in office and work alongside each other. No. So all of this is across a global scale. We are communicating across time zones, and we're working across time zones towards getting something out of the door on a specified date. So the major takeaway from here is not anything else, but you are getting an opportunity to be on an extremely competitive program at the end of the day. And second thing is, you are going to be learning more non-technical things rather than technical stuff. And obviously your learning on the technical front is not going to diminish, but you are going to learn to work alongside a globally distributed team. You're going to learn to work and communicate and be empathetic of other people's times, other people's lifestyles, everything. And that, for I think me, is personally the biggest takeaway, because it's not something all of us get to experience if you are a student, or if you're a say a person who is working in a localized team, say based out of Mumbai, or based out of Pune, or based out of Hyderabad. You're not going to be able to interact with very many folks around the globe. This is your chance to do that, and for that itself, this program is an amazing opportunity. But that being said, I guess, Savita, over to you again for the rest of it.
And don't feel disheartened if you don't get into the program on your first try. You have a living example right in front of you. I tried a couple times and I took a break for 6 months before I tried again. And we get over 100 plus applications, and we have only limited roles to fill. So please don't be disheartened. In the meantime, keep working. If you don't get selected, keep working on other ways that we have already mentioned in this session, and then reapply, right? Try until you succeed. So it's one of the examples. One of the best quotes that would suit this particular situation. So keep trying, and don't feel bad at all. It happens. It happened to me. Because the reason I'm telling is that so many folks get disheartened that when they don't get into the program. So I just want to throw it out loud. It has happened to me. And try. And in the meantime, work on other skills. And I bet Kunal has something to add to it.
I just want to say that I could not agree more. I applied multiple times and got rejected as well for shadows. But then when I actually started attending all the meetings more regularly and making contributions, then when I least expected it, I was like, okay, I'm making contributions irrespective of whether I get selected or not. That's when I got selected. So that's the sort of mindset you need to have, contribute irrespective of whether you get selected or not, with the motivation of learning and, getting involved in the community. That's definitely going to help you in your application as well. So I also agree. I was rejected a few times as well for shadows. And yeah, in the shadows application, one more thing I can share is just mention the main things related to Kubernetes community, and how you can, why you want to be a shadow, and all these other questions. Be specific is basically what I'm saying. So I was previously, I used to write a lot of things that were not related to the question. So Nabarun told me that, hey, focus on the just the specifics of the community, Kate's community. So that helped me quite a lot, and then my application got selected.
Those are really, really good points, Kunal. Thank you for sharing those points, and show your passion. That's more important at times. Be passionate about whatever you want to do, and when you submit an application, if it shows the passion, it will definitely get through one way or the other. And next comes the biggest question, right? Everyone right now might be thinking like, oh yeah, you have talked about shadows and whatnot. Yeah. We want to know like how can I be one, right? So every cycle before the cycle ends, the emeritus advisor would send a OTA notice. Telling that the shadow application is open. They'll have a Google Forms link, and this gets sent to the Kubernetes developer mailing list that I said. All kinds of communication, all kinds of mentoring opportunities, all kinds of not the help wanted, like any kind of mentoring, any kind of new program, new working group, anything that gets created would be sent to that Kubernetes developer mailing list. And this will also be shared later on Twitter and whatnot, but this is your one place, single source of truth kind of place. So you can sign up for that Google group and you'll get all the information. Once you get the information, once you get the notice email, go ahead, sign up, fill the form with whatever that you know. Be truthful, show your passion. If you don't know anything, that's totally fine. So the way that the team operates is that they would definitely pick up one or two people who don't know anything and they want to really mentor that person, and they would have a couple of experienced persons. So they have a mix of the team. So if you don't know anything, it's still fine. Just go and be truthful and tell whatever. What do you want to learn, and be specific, as Kunal said, and keep trying. That's one thing that I want to say.
Being specific is important. When I was previously filling applications, I was like checking all the teams. But then in this particular cycle, I was like, okay, I only want to do either comms or docs because that's what I have experience with in the community. So yeah, being specific will help. Also follow the CNCF students group on Twitter. There we post all the amazing opportunities. So for example, KubeCon North America is free for students virtually. You can check out Bill's tweet on filling the scholarship form. I'll find it and share with you, so you can fill that out and you'll get a ticket for free.
Thank you, Kunal, for that. Divya, do you want to add something to it, or?
Nope, we're good to go ahead, I guess. So do you want me to cover this, or will you
sure. Yeah,
be
please.
doing it? Yeah, no, I mean, I'm okay if you are. So if you want to apply, and obviously our session doesn't cover it all. Like I said before, we have like a 1 hour 15 minutes at this point running session, and we're obviously not going to be able to cover every single thing that comes under the release shadow program. So read the role handbooks, and this particular these slides will be available, and we'll be sharing the links with Kunal later on, so you can take a look at these slides. But read the role handbooks to understand the responsibilities. Kunal mentioned be specific, right? So if you tick mark every single role against which you want to shadow, it's a very likely possibility that you might not get chosen, not because people don't like you or it's something personal. We had around 100 applications, more than 100 applications this cycle for shadowing, and it's a very difficult process to sort of sort and figure out if you have everything as your interest. So we want to pick people who are truly passionate and truly excited to learn a specific area under the various team roles that we mentioned before. So be very specific, like Kunal said. Read the role handbooks to understand what you would like to be specific about, because there are a lot of teams and maybe you don't know what each of the roles entail. Despite Savitha clarifying a lot of it, you still don't understand a lot of it. So go ahead, read the role handbooks and understand the responsibility of each role. After that, if you still have doubts, please visit us in the Slack channel and ask on SIG release, because that's the best stop shot to understand if you are are clearly getting the grasp of your responsibilities, and if you're clearly understanding what is going to be your what your next 4-5 months are going to look like. And once you have this idea, make sure you fill up the form as well, because without that we are not going to understand your interest. And once you fill up the form, cross your fingers and wait for the selection announcements. We communicate, the communication is done by the emeritus advisor as well as, the respective role leads to the shadows. And just be really, really cautious and not cautious, rather conscious of what you fill in, because you need to reflect what you want to learn. Without you communicating that, we're not going to be able to, assess well. So if you tick mark everything, you are possibly setting yourself up for failure, because even if you want to learn everything, it's not really possible for us to judge your interest basis one application form, right? So start small and then start exploring. Do you have anything to add, Savitha?
No, it's all well said, Divya. Thank you for that. And I am going to move on to the next one. So, like I mentioned before, everything comes with an incentive, right? Like you do something, and there is like an equal, like for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And you want to contribute, and you would ask, like, what is the benefit, or what do I gain out of it? So you get the knowledge, you get to be like you can grow into a level where you become the subject matter expert in that area, and then you develop your communication skills, you get to know how to collaborate with others, and you also like develop other skills, for example presentation skills, speaking in public and whatnot. And in addition to that, there is also a well laid out ladder for the contributors, and that starts from being a part of the organization, and then you get to be a reviewer, and then once you are established, and then you become a subject matter expert, and you become an approver, and you can decide if this is the right thing to do or not, and then you can challenge and give your feedback and make it more impactful. And after that, you can progress to own as a project, right? So you know things, you are ready for the responsibility, you have a direction in mind, you can help the project grow. And so there is a well laid out path, basically, in addition to all the other benefits that you get out of contributing. This is very fulfilling. Like it is, when you become the member and then you get the org invite, that would be one of the happiest moments. And for me, it was really one of the happiest moments. And when I got invited to Kubernetes, the little Kubernetes robot in the email, and I bet it was one of those. I can see Kunal and Divya smiling a little bit, so probably it's for them as well. So that's all I have on the slide. If any of you want to add anything more.
Just one little thing, and this is, I guess, a little perk that you have if you're as a release shadow and you're a newly minted release shadow. So assuming that you apply for the upcoming release shadowing program, and once you apply for it, you get selected. So you get to directly, and this is not a cheat code or anything, but you directly get to bypass to the member level, because as part of the release team, you're required to be part of the K8's organization. Again, it's not a cheat code. You need to be really, your application needs to really stand out, and your application needs to be really specific and all of that. But it's a perk of being on the release team to sort of be accepted as a member, because you have a lot of other coordination roles to fulfill. So that's one little small perk that we have for folks who shadow on the release team, and that includes people who have not contributed previously as well. So that's why I mentioned it as a perk. Over to you.
Thank you, Divya, for mentioning about the privilege. Do you want to take this over?
Sorry, I again lost my muted thing. So yeah, so all this being said, I know we've like bombarded you with a lot of stuff, and you probably are wondering how do we start communicating with folks in the Kubernetes community. So these are some of the resources. So can we move on to the next slide, please? Okay. So here's the Slack link that we promised at the start, I guess, start or the mid of the presentation. So we promised you a Slack link, and here it is. So this is the Slack link for the K8's community. Hit it, join the Slack, and in that specifically, um, go to in dev, in users, in events, and SIG contributs and SIG docs channels. SIG contributs and SIG docs more so for the non-code contributions bit, but for from a perspective of just coming in and saying hi, uh, join the in-dev channel first, because if you're coming from India, you'd like people to interact with and who are part of the same subcontinent, right? So we are all over there. And fun fact, on the in-dev channel, we also post out those messages that you saw in the previous slides, like the one posted by Aditi, the one posted by Madhav. We obviously posted in other channels, so it's not like it's an exclusive channel, but it's exclusive to Indians. And we try and cross post as many good first issues and as many initiatives for newer contributors as we can to help newer folks get on board. So come on there and say hi, because we really love meeting new people. And please bring in your emoji game, because we are not those boring people who don't like emojis. So please bring in your emoji game, and we'd love to see you there. And we are all part of that these channels. So please join in. And as for in dev and in users and in events, stay tuned on those channels for all those good first issues that I was talking about earlier. Anything to add in here, Savitha, Kunal?
No, you covered everything perfectly. Thank you for that. Kunal, do you have anything to add?
You're on mute, I guess.
Oh, I was on mute. Sorry. So yeah, no, nothing much to add. These slides, I'll link it in the description at the end of the session.
Sure. Thank you, Kunal, for that. So we mentioned about the resources. We have added the contributor website and the Slack links. If we have anything more, we would add it before we will post the slides. We'll make sure to add if we remember anything else. These are the two things that you need to get going, basically. So we have that. Some of the credits, we borrowed some of the slides from the contributor workshop, some from SIG contributes, and some from individuals. I think we have a list of other individuals to add to it too. So we just want to give credits and kudos to whoever helped us put this presentation together. And now it's the time for Q&A. Bring on your game.
Yep. Before we get started with Q&A, DIMS also has a GitHub gist with all the resources for getting started. It's very, very nice. I just shared that in the chat as well. You can check it out. All right. Let's see. So there's a question. What does code freeze day mean in K8's releases?
All right. So that is a very interesting question. So with every release cycle, we let the feature come in, and we set a date telling that, okay, today is the date that by today's date, or like the code freeze date, all the features that's going to go into the release must be complete. That means that you have your code test, and you should have been started the documentation. The documentation doesn't have to be complete because we have the deadlines coming forward. Basically, it's like in terms of code freeze, that we won't take any more code for that particular release unless and until it's some kind of bug and release blocking and security vulnerabilities that we want to fix. So that day is the date by which whatever that you want to get into the release must be in the release. We just have a little party flair to it, just to make it fun, so that people don't dread. So we just call it like Code Freeze Day, yay, like that. But basically, it's like the day that by that particular day that you get all your features in, and after that there will be no other features that get added to that particular release. And I think, if I am not wrong, the merging of any new code will also be blocked until the repository gets thawed. That comes after the release. So for about for a while, I think you cannot merge any new code. I need to go check on that. I'm really sorry, so I'm not gonna say that with so much confidence. But code freeze is like you gotta get all the test, bug fixes, features, deprecations, whatever that you want to get into the release by the time. Get it.
Thank you
Just
for
to add,
sharing.
if
Yeah, Divya, go ahead.
just to add one little thing. Savitha mentioned everything but the exceptions bit, so I'm just going to chime in here. So if you actually don't end up getting it because you need more time to sort of write in your code and maybe fix some tests that are failing or flaking, you do have the opportunity to send in an exception request, which will be reviewed by the release team, of course. And the as the release team, the release they have the final say. I'm going to say we, but they have the final say on whether or not that exception request can be approved or denied. Basically, we have the say on whether your exception is valid enough to be making it into the release, or whether you can wait another release, that is another 4-5 months, for this to go into the next Kubernetes version. So it's a very hectic day, but it's also a lot of fun because you get to learn a lot of new things, and I certainly for one got to learn a lot of new things this cycle. So yeah, thank you for that, Savitha.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. The next question is how to not get intimidated or scared as a beginner when asking questions or help in the community. What if the questions are on the silly side? This is something that many people feel for obvious reasons. Anyone?
Okay.
Divya or Savitha?
I'll
Okay, you can take a shot. Okay, you can go ahead first. It's fine.
you go ahead. First, you go ahead, and then I will follow your steps.
Okay. So firstly, no questions are silly. That's the first thing that I want to put it out there. No question. However silly it might sound to you, it's not as silly as it sounds in your own head. So don't worry about it sounding like very basic or very silly or very beginner level, because everybody has got to start somewhere, right? You need to start at some point to get to another point. You can't so for example, you cannot sit in a train and expect it to reach somewhere without the train actually starting to move. So your silly questions might be the reason your career within open source actually starts happening to flourish, or you actually start learning something. So you can't let that fear intimidate you. Second thing, we have a list of such basic questions addressed beforehand in our contributor guide. I think we've shared that, Savitha, in our presentation. So go through that as well, because that's like our a holy grail, so to say, to go ahead and actually refer if these things have already happened with previous contributors, and if these issues have been faced by previous contributors. So you get that just as well as to what needs to be done if you are facing an XYZ issue that is already recorded. And coming to the point where you feel intimidated, it's natural. I felt intimidated, and I was really flustered when I submitted my first PR to the Kubernetes repository, Kubernetes documentation repository, because I thought, like, how big can it be that it fixes such a small line of documentation? But I think my very first PR was sort of reviewed and approved by Tim Bannister. He's an excellent documentation person to reach out to if you have doubts. But he was very instrumental in me understanding the basics and in me understanding the very structure of documentation within Kubernetes. So I would have bombarded him with very stupid questions, and I know that for a fact. But for him, it was a way to pass on his knowledge, and it was a way to give back, maybe, in, if I may say so, to the community what he had received as knowledge from somebody else. So don't be intimidated, is something very easy for me to say, but I know it's not easy for you to experience and feel that way. What I just say is, just do it. Like, just go ahead and ask that silly question. What is the worst that can actually happen? Like, they will say that, oh, this has already been documented there. That's the maximum. There's nothing else that's going to actually happen to you. Nobody's going to come and eat your brain, or nobody's going to come and sue you for asking that simple question. Maximum to maximum, they'll redirect you to a contributor guide, and that's the end of it. You're not going to be called stupid behind your back. I assure you that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. What I do is I would recommend follow the 1 hour rule. So basically, if you have any, this is not just for Kubernetes community, but any particular question you have related to any technology, try to research about it, and if you're not able to make any progress in an hour, then you can ask your question in the public channel and to anyone who you're working with. For example, if you're working on a personal project with some people, or like in your internship or something, so Google about it for some time, and if you're not able to get any progress in an hour, then you ask all the questions that you want. So that also, because most of the time, sometimes it happens is that your question might already be the first link of a Google search, right? That is what I've seen in the channels as well. But like Divya mentioned, no question is silly, and no one is going to judge you. You have nothing to lose. So most definitely you can ask anything you want.
Very true. So I'm going to reiterate whatever that they said. It's okay to feel overwhelmed and intimidated, and that's, you have already taken the first step. If you're feeling that, you have already taken the first step, right? Because you want to contribute, you want to learn something, and you're there, and that is the biggest thing, that is the biggest push that you need. You have already reached there, and the next step is so easy. Kunal gave an 1 hour rule, which I might take, and then I'm going to take it and I'm going to follow it, because that's actually a really nice one. Thank you, Kunal, for that. So try that, start, and ask away. Nothing bad's going to happen. Anyone would already point to already discussed Slack thread or a Google link or a contributor link, but that's about it. But it gives you any questions are welcome, basically. No bad questions. No questions are bad. That's all I have to add.
Cool. And I believe we are way above time. So being cautious of everyone's time, we're going to leave you with the links. And if you have any further questions, you have the Slack community, or you can also reach out to the CNCF group on Twitter. If you have any questions related to this talk, I'll link all the slides and all the links and everything in the description below. And yeah, thanks a lot for joining, everyone. Thanks a lot, Savitha and Divya, for joining. Do you have any closing remarks?
Thank you all. Thanks for taking your time. And sorry that we overran the meeting time. We didn't expect. We have so much good content to share. And I think partly because we are excited and we would just want to help the community in any way possible. So that's what happened here. But sorry for not being respectful of your time. And thanks for coming to our session. I enjoyed this session, and I hope to see you all in one form or the other. Say hi in Slack, say hi into Twitter. Divya and my Twitter IDs are in this slide as well, the first slide, if I'm not wrong.
In the description as well. You can check out the description. Yep.
Thank you, Kunal. And I want to give my thanks to Kunal as well for putting this awesome session together and helping us and be there. Thank you all. Over to Divya.
I'm just gonna catch thank you everyone. Like, I mean, I don't have any other things to say than what Savitha has right now said. Thank you everyone for taking time out on a Saturday, and I hope to see you all around in the community. If you have any doubts, please reach out. We are going to respond to you. It might take a little more than 24 to 48 hours. We're not Amazon, so it might take more than your standard shipping time, but we will respond to you. We work on other stuff as well, so just give us time. We'll definitely get back to you with something or the other. If not a resource, but we'll definitely get back to you with something. So thank you everyone, and thank you Kunal. As always, you've been awesome for putting together the session.
Yep. Thanks everyone for joining, and thanks Divya and Savitha once again. And yeah, make sure you check out CNCS Students on Twitter, Cloud Native TV, so many amazing shows coming up and everything. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.